welcome to Slayerfest 98. I'm your host, Ian Carlos Crawford.
And I'm Ashley K. Smalls.
Hi, Ashley.
Hey.
I feel like we got this down pretty good now, right?
Yeah, I was about to say, and also, we're halfway through already, so we made it.
I know. We did.
No one's lost their mind yet, so, it's been great.
I told everyone before recording, I literally finished watching the episode 2 minutes before we started.
The great thing about that, though, is that now when we go over everything, I'm going to be like, all right, you really saw this.
So you'd think, but sometimes my weed-soaked brain, I still will what did I want? I'm like, oh, wait, when did that happen? I feel like my ADD mixed with everything else. I'm like I always forget names. I feel like so often, Falcon and Winter Soldier, I would be like, that other not Captain America, I would forget his name all the time. And I don't know. I feel like when they're side characters, I'm like, oh God.
See, I only remember everyone's name in that because I want relationships with them. So I guess they should maybe start using that as a plot. But but we are joined by two guests today. We have Palestinian freelance writer based in Seattle.
Hey, my name's Tariq Raouf. Hi, guys.
Hi.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. And we also have freelance writer currently writing for Nerdist based in New York.
Hi, this is Maryam Ahmad.
Hi.
I'm so glad to have both of you here. I said this already before we recorded, but I wanted to let everyone know both of you were very, very flexible with scheduling, and I really appreciated it. I had 2 cancellations this week, and both of you were super down to jump in, and I really appreciate that. And both of you, it's your first time on the podcast. So what we do is at the top, I'm going to get Tariq, how did you feel about this episode particular? A quick overview of how you felt about it.
I really liked it. I enjoyed it. I thought it was really, really cool. And I like how we're just really getting into the depths of Kamala's powers and her family. And I just thought it was really cool. It was also just really cool to see a Muslim wedding. I just thought that was awesome. So I feel very good about the episode.
Yeah. Ashley, what'd you think of it?
I'm going to be honest with you. I think out of the 3 that we've seen so far, it's probably my least favorite. And that's not saying I didn't enjoy it. But if I was to choose which one to rewatch, I'd probably rewatch episode 1 or 2. But I absolutely enjoyed the wedding scene. That's been one of the highlights of the series so far. That was an amazing scene.
Yeah, I love that too.
I liked it for the most part, apart from some choices, but I guess we can get into that as we discuss the episode in depth. But I definitely loved the whole wedding scenes. I loved the emphasis on Kamala and her sort of urge to protect her community and family. I thought that was very cool. But yeah, overall, liked it. I think I agree with Ashley, though. This might have been my least favorite of the 3 so far.
Yeah, I think I agree with that sentiment as well. Because I didn't dislike it. It was of the 3, I think Disney, and we've discussed this before, Ashley, some of the shows have a little bit, even when they're short, sometimes hit a weird slump. And I felt myself feeling for this episode, okay, but I want to see her. I think you tweeted this, Ashley. I wanted to see her fight back when the people were attacking the wedding. And I get she's a kid, so it's I don't know. I wanted a little bit more forward momentum story-wise. And it felt like we were doing what we did in episode 2, where it's ooh, there's still the mystery, you don't really know. And it felt like we added to the mystery, but didn't add to the forward momentum. I don't know.
It's really interesting because I think that all 3 episodes are still in that slump phase. I agree completely. And I like them all equally, which is to say, I haven't been super impressed. With Loki by episode 3, I was whoa, wow. And with WandaVision episode 3 with WandaVision was still, not that great. But this is kind of following WandaVision's, I think in that the first 3 episodes are just all around.
All right. I appreciate that you brought the hot takes for this. So this episode, I really loved the fact that they played very dramatic continuation music, because we ended on cliffhanger last episode. my only thing was I was kind of like, other than like that being his mom, and we saw the vision of her, it was kind of like, okay, so it's his mom, is how I kind of felt about the cliffhanger last episode. It was kind of like, all right. I mean, if it was like her great grandmother in the backseat, it would have been like, holy shit. But it was like, all right, it's that guy's mom. We just met that guy, huh? But I liked that it like had this like super dramatic music, and I actually liked the flashback we opened on. We see like Cameron's mom digging through some stuff, and she finds, because so the only problem with me finishing this episode 2 minutes before we recorded is I meant to look up like to see like what the Easter eggs were, but I did not get to look. So I was wondering, I was like, I wonder if that like, if any of this is like referencing the comics, because I didn't know if it was. I don't know.
This
if
is a real
anyone-
departure from the comics. I'm gonna be honest with you.
That's what I thought.
It's so different. I'm so sorry to interrupt. Yeah.
What I have seen has been the symbols that Cameron's mom, what's her name, Najma, and the other clandestines were standing on were the same signs as the 10 rings. So there have been people linking.
Oh shit! Really?
That's what I saw on TikTok.
Huh.
But as someone like, I mean, this has been a huge departure from the comic. So
Right.
there's no like, hey, they're doing this thing that they're bringing. Like, no, it's so. I mean, I've been seeing people link it a bit more to the rest of the MCU. I saw someone link it to Shang-Chi. I saw someone. That was the main thing I remember seeing. I know that there was something in that scene that was related to the signs of the 10 rings from Wing Wu.
Yes, the ground had the symbols of the 10 rings on them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I remember that. And then the bracelet was on someone with blue skin. So there were people trying to see if that may have been Kree or if it was Jen, which I'm not really all that comfortable with. But in terms of just in the sense of the topic of, hey, how does this link to the comics? I know some people will watch the show and then see like from comics that they haven't read. You haven't missed out on anything yet, because like for those of us who read the comics, at least I am a bit lost myself. So
it's so confusing. I mean, honestly, it really is, because like her source of her powers are coming from a completely different place in the comics. And like the clandestine, not in the, like, I mean, they are Marvel comics, but they had no association with Kamala. So it's just really interesting.
And I'm like, I can't even remember. I rebrushed up on the Miss Marvel comics. So I'm like, I know I've read about the clandestines, but that is very deep somewhere in the back of my mind. I can't even tell you where anyways, yeah. So I will not be the comic book nerd on this podcast, is my announcement here. But this has been a huge departure. I'm gonna be honest with it. I'm not that happy with it. I mean, I know maybe a part of me is being a little like stubborn, because I'm like, damn, I thought they were definitely linking this to the Inhumans. And to be fair, it's possible that this could be them throwing us off. But
right. Well, yeah, I'm curious what you both think of it. Yeah, because we get that flashback, and then his mother's kind of like gives like a little bit of like a plotty exposition info dump. What'd y'all think of that?
I think I don't like it.
Yeah.
I don't like it. I think in order to make Kamala basically go through the same kind of journey she goes from the comics of being Inhuman and like finding out she's like even more different than she realized before. They're making her Jinn, and that's like not something I'm super comfortable with, because of how, first of all, the clandestines, I looked at the comics very briefly today, but it's like replete with Orientalist stereotypes, like showing them as barbarians, like white saviorism, anything you could think of is there. That's not great. So even if they're trying to redeem that and try to change the cultural context of that, I don't know if that's necessary, if it's just going to be like a red herring that we're just eventually going to lead to the Inhuman whatever storyline.
Right.
But yeah, I don't like this. I'm really hoping it is just a misdirect.
No, I agree completely, because I was also doing some research on the clandestine, and like it came out in the 90s, and it was like the Marvel comics came out in the 90s, and super problematic racist typical racist stereotypes and like caricatures of Jinn and the mythology that they're using. Like it was definitely like a culture that they're like, oh, this would be a really cool thing to make like a comic like thing out of. And it's curious that they would go there. They have so many other places they could have gone with Kamala, and to like focus on the Jinn part of the Marvel MCU, like why, you know?
Wait, so is that accurate for the clandestines in the Marvel comics?
The clandestines in the Marvel comics are Jinn, yes,
okay.
and they are like it has to do with this one guy named Adam who basically fell in love and like had sex with a Jinn and created like a clandestine bloodline that like have like magical power, and it's just like Maryam was saying, very white savior type stuff going on. From what I recall, this is a day's worth of like education for me, because I went down this I went down this rabbit hole.
Listen, it's already more than I did because I had work and then I came home, I worked out, and then I had to watch this, eat dinner, and come record. So I thought, I was like, that name sounds familiar from the comics. I feel like maybe I had a trading card of it in the early 90s, when they would make like those like massive trading card sets for Marvel. Because like there's a lot of characters like Morbius. That's how I learned who that character was, because I had a trading card of him. Like I never actually read it. I mean, I have since, but like as a kid, I only knew who he was because I had a trading card of like, oh, this Dracula guy. And there are a lot of Marvel characters where I'm like, that sounds familiar. I think I had a trading card. So yeah, I was thinking when she was doing the like, we've been alive for hundreds of years, we're from another dimension. I was like, ooh, she's going to say Eternals or Inhumans. She's going to say the thing. And then she did not. I was like, oh, all right. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's Ashley, we talked about this. It's so weird that they've brought Black Bolt back and like validated the Inhumans as like part of the MCU. So I kind of was like, oh, well, maybe they will go that route
I
in
mean,
the show.
even beyond just, they did introduce us to an Inhuman in the last Marvel movie. It's also just like the Kree is responsible for Inhumans, and they're linked to Miss Marvel. I mean, excuse me, they're linked to Captain Marvel. So it just seemed like such a clear, link between her. We have 3 episodes before the next adventure we see Kamala in is the Marvel. So it just seemed like an easy link. And I'm just like, instead you went with this plot here. And I don't want to speak on like what the Jinn means into, Kamala's community and things like that, because that's just not my place. But I've tried to follow along with the dialogue from people in that respective community. It hasn't been, all that positive. So I'm just like, damn, why did y'all do this?
Yeah.
So, I'm really, really hoping it's to throw us off, because maybe with us only being halfway through, they make, they're afraid of, giving us too much when they still have so much more to go. I don't know, really. I really, we won't. This is literally why every episode 1 of these, when we do these podcasts, my first thing is always, I'm not gonna really know. Like, this is really short, and this I don't know how they're gonna, be able to really display this in such a short amount of episodes and what they're gonna go with. And I'm always nervous about it, because even when I start to have a little bit of faith, they go left, and I'm like, shit, we're halfway done, and this is what you guys are doing. What are you gonna do with the next 3 episodes?
It's really interesting too with the Jinn concept, and like the idea of like them making the version of Jinn that Kamala sees as like these villains, and like it's just taking like a part of like Islamic history and culture, and also like vilifying it in a different sense. And it just it rubs me the wrong way so far.
Also, I know, like, because go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. No, go ahead.
No, the same thing that Tariq was saying, that like the heel turn that happens so fast with this so-called group of Jinn just boggled my mind. Like the pacing in this episode was kind of all over the place.
Right, like it was like I mean, I know I even just told everyone, oh, we'll discuss it in order. Now I'm jumping ahead. Like at the wedding, it's just like, oh, they're here to kill you. And it's like, wait, how did we get to like that they're going to kill them all, right? Like,
Yes.
it felt like there wasn't like a betrayal turn. It was just the mom saying, I'm going to make her do it. And then them say like, and then like the announcement of they're here to kill everyone and them like going really hard against Kamala. That did feel like, did I miss a scene? Like,
Right?
Yeah.
Right?
because
Really?
although she was going to help them, like she was ready to help.
And
So
that's
it's
what I'm
not like-
confused about as well, is because like she literally had to go to Bruno to even figure out what she needed to do. So I'm just like,
right.
if you are going to force her to help, do you already know what needs to be done here? Because if that was the case, what was she running to Bruno for? If it's like, hey, we
Right.
need you to put your hand in this thing that's actually going to kill you or something. Like, I don't fully understand.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not like she even said, no, I'm not going to help. She's like, I just need more time. And then like, so like, that's the most boggling part of this all, is that like, we don't have any more time. Like, girl, you've been on this, in this dimension for hundreds of years.
Immortal, the one thing you have plenty of is time. I can understand wanting to go back real soon, but like, you actually have a lot more of that than the rest of us, Miss Mamas. Like, just
It's just she's also 16 years old.
Yeah. It's like, you can really
Like-
tell when like they're just doing stuff for the sake of like, all right, we got to get something going on here, and it's like, no, this is where really good storytelling comes into place, because like, and I think that was one of the things that made me frustrated with like the big fight, and is, as Ian was saying about like when I complained about, I wish she like knew how to fight, because I'm understandable why she doesn't yet. She's a kid. She literally just got her powers like last week. It's understandable. But at the same time, you guys rush to this big sequence. It's like, she can't really do anything yet. And, it's not even like she has the type of powers where it's like, it just starts doing things on its own, really. Like they kind of alluded to that, but it still wasn't really helping her yet. And it's like, it gets really frustrating, because also if you're going to take this type, it's like, if you are going to randomly decide to speed up, why not speed up when she realizes how to take people down? Because you now have her severely under like prepared and 3 episodes left. And I hate to keep bringing it up, but like, she is supposed to be partnering with the strongest person in the MCU, who goes up against people who are on her level strength wise. So if she's not going to be able to hold it down against some assassins, what is she going to do?
Yeah.
So I'm just like, I'm frustrated with the pacing. And then it's just like, I don't like it when they start doing stuff that doesn't make sense. This is sort of the thing that they did with Falcon and the Winter Soldier that made me frustrated. It was like we were on a roll, and then you randomly have the, tampering with socialist person start blowing up buildings so that you can be reminded that she's a villain. And it's like, it's like this is starting to not make too much sense in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, I mean, I will say, I still am loving it in general, though.
No. Like, I know once we start trying to talk about our grievances, people start acting like we completely hated the show. Like, the whole point of the podcast, people, is that we're gonna pinpoint some stuff here that, like, yeah, it makes sense. Overall, the show is still absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah.
This is just a matter of like, be smart with the time, or also MCU maybe stop giving the shows only 6 episodes. But this is not to say the show is bad.
A weird grievance that I have is, it feels like in this episode, Bruno is too smart almost. Like, we're getting like Tony Stark level scientist shit. And I'm like, like when he's like, oh, I forget what he says to her. Like, oh, I ran some tests on your powers. And it's like, how did he do that?
And then even also I read a paper. Speaking of which, connections.
Yes.
The paper comes from the Doctor in Thor. But he was in both movies. And
I think he was
in Avengers too. But yeah, so that was another connection between Miss Marvel and Thor. What is his name? Selvig? Dr. Selvig?
Yeah.
So yeah, just to clarify another connection that was there. But also, like, when I was in high school, like, I wasn't reading like paper, like
science journals.
Yeah, exactly. Not just like, hey, remember that article on our favorite superhero who in this world would basically be celebrities, but like a research journal. Like, I didn't even know what those really were at age 15, 16 years old. So like, they don't really, I mean, again, he did get in Caltech, so I guess it makes maybe more sense for him than anyone. But But yeah.
But I don't know. What did y'all think? Like, am I being too nitpicky with the like science stuff?
No, because like,
It's okay if I am.
how is he using a surface to scan her powers? How, like, what kind of app can like look at a like a superhuman and like scan the powers that are coming inside of them? That was like a little ridiculous. And then like interdimensional travel, like that
Right.
seems a step up for most. Like, I feel like Tony
It's not
Stark
casually
is
mentioned.
like, yeah, Tony Stark is going to be the one who'd be like, oh yeah, like I think I know a guy who might know some things, not some like 16-year-old kid from Jersey City.
But the thing is, even with like when Peter Parker would be the one to tamper with those type of things, he has access at that time. He has access to Stark tech. He's basically,
Right.
Stark's long lost son in the MCU. I know there are people who hate that, but that is how he's being treated. So it's like,
Right.
it makes sense when he has access to certain things that your average teenager wouldn't. And they're not really explaining. Anyway, so to get on a more positive note, I did actually enjoy that they had a Kamala's father be the one to explain like this lore, and not like have it be that he stumbled upon it himself as a I'm just gonna as a white guy, but that they actually had it, because it is something that is important to their actual like community and things like that, and having him break it down and explain it. But like, see, things like that make sense versus like when we fast forward and randomly he has all the information on everything that Kamala needs.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead. Oh, I thought I interrupted someone. Sorry. Yeah, and like I'm very charmed by the father too. I really like, he's there to get like his like cheat snack, and then is like, oh, want me to read this for you? I can, and just like reads it and is like, never heard that before, and doesn't like. It's like very like dad, right? Where it's like,
he's so
okay.
cute.
Yeah.
Yeah. And even they have a scene where he, was it him or was it I think it was her father who gives her the speech about good isn't something that
that was Sheikh Abdullah.
That was Sheikh.
In the comics, it's her father.
That's where I'm getting, and that's literally what I was about to say. Is just want to say that scene, was not referenced in, but it's from the comics, but it's a different character.
They've done that a lot in the show, right? Like have like scenes that are like one for one in the comics.
Yeah, they have been doing it. They have been doing that, and those are one of the things that I do like. I like when the show manages to be a superhero show that's still in the voice of like, it's still very much relevant to like teen life. Yeah, and I guess maybe that's where this show, because like we talked about this in the first two episodes. When she's like. She's juggling superhero life, but like she has crush on a new boy. She's, and I
like
going to the guidance counselor, and she's dozing off. And it's like, that would be me at 16. And I think maybe it's the pacing issue of like trying to still illustrate this charismatic, out there teenager, and then putting her into these like MCU problems. And I say that to say that like now it's going into like the voice of like a Hawkeye.
Yeah.
But like without the familiarity of us with Kamala as a superhero quite yet, if that makes sense.
Ironically, the show is like doing a really good job of showing Kamala's like personal life and her personal growth and her connection to her family, but they're doing a terrible job in terms of her growth as a superhero and the MCU aspect of the show with the pacing and Bruno not like having access to all this information that he shouldn't have, and like. But like they're doing a really good job with her connection to her family and like her connection to her culture and her religion. Like it's clear that they were really focusing on making sure that she was grounded in her culture and her roots, and like the show has a basis there, because I think they tried really hard because they knew that this was going to be such a groundbreaking opportunity for the MCU, but they are almost overdoing it in a sense where they're not really giving her time to grow as a hero, or get to know her powers, or get to like have these problems with these villains that aren't well like rounded and like super 180 turns. Like it's really weird. It's a weird balancing issue.
Yeah, you're right. Because oh, sorry, go ahead.
I think the reason that problem is what exists in the show is because I think in the comics, like her sort of figuring out her identity and her place was so intricately connected to how she was changing her body. Like the first moment where she realizes, oh, I can save someone. She's like, oh, I can only save someone if I'm white, blonde-haired, blue-eyed.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think that exploration that those comic powers gave her isn't necessarily replicable with whatever it is going on in the show right now, with connecting her to Jin now and like whatever. If they had just stuck to it being like, oh, something that is in her like matrilineal line or something, maybe that would have worked. But
Mm-hmm.
the way that like those two paths aren't matching up necessarily, I think is because they've changed it up so much.
Yeah, I agree with that completely. They're totally overcompensating for the fact that they really took away her one part of her ability that really connected her to her roots. And they're like, now they're trying to figure out like, how do we make sure that she still is connected to her roots without that massive moment that she had in like the very first comics where she's like, I don't have to be white. I want to be me.
Yeah. And I mean, yeah, so I want to talk about the mosque scene, because that made me very happy watching them stand up to damage control. And like I feel like Nakia's getting more to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I like that, because I did like her character. I told Ashley this already. I read I think only the first 4 or 5 volumes in trade form of Ms. Marvel. So like, you know, it's like and that came out what, in 2000 and
What, 13?
13, 12,
14.
14. Okay. So, and my brain, I'm like, I remember I liked her and we're not getting enough of her. And then so I've been glad to see her like do more. And I really liked the way she was sitting with the other people in the mosque, and you kind of didn't realize it was her until she stood up and was like, actually. And I really liked seeing that. And like, I can't quite tell what they're trying to do with damage control, right? Though, because they do like save her at the end, kind of. And I don't know. But yeah, what did y'all think of this scene? Tariq?
I really, really enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah.
One of my biggest concerns with episode 2 was how they were taking Nakia's character and kind of changing her a bit. You know, I don't know. I wish I'd listened to your episode 2 podcast. But with Nakia's change, like to how she's struggling with being half white and half Arab, was like a really interesting change from the comics, because she's like fully Turkish in the comics. And so it was like, oh gosh, what are they going to be doing to Nakia, and like how are they going to be changing her character up? But she's really kind of true to herself in the comics. You know, like she's able to stand up for herself. She's able to like protect her community from these like agents that are trying to illegally do a search. And I really, really, really like that. Because I was concerned about where they were taking Nakia, but I think that concern was more on a surface level than like a really deeper character level.
Yeah. And I think Samira might have said this in the first episode. I forget who said it in the first episode, that like Kamala basically is like a modern day like Spider-Man's. Like it's like we have the like strong cast of like, I was gonna say like humans as the superheroes are, but you know what I mean, like the civilian cast. And like I do think the show is doing a good job of like, there are a lot of characters, but I feel like each one of them feels like I get their personality. Which is a credit, because like, right, like sometimes, especially a superhero show, especially when there's a cast of like the like non-super powered folks, they can kind of get like very much sidelined, and you're just like, I don't know, that's like one of their friends. And I feel like Nakia and Bruno both have been like, I don't know, I've liked them. And my only worry with Bruno is, on top of the like Tony Stark technology bullshit, I'm a little worried that like he like, I understand that he's jealous, but sometimes I'm like, ooh, is this gonna border on like incel dude? Like I wait for it to like get there. And I'm like, right now I like him, and he's allowed to be like jealous because he's not being mean, but I'm like worried that it'll like get there.
I was really happy though that they didn't go the comic route where Kamran basically is like, he's
evil.
I'm sorry?
Like, do you say when Kamala was evil, like in the comics?
Yeah, exactly. I was so worried that love interest wise, they were going to be like, white love interest good, and brown love interest goes bad. And I was like, oh God, please don't do this. Please don't do this. So I was really happy that they went the route of like, I'm not saying she should necessarily trust him considering his connection, you know, to
Right,
everything.
yeah.
He made, he's still gonna want to protect his mother on some level, but like at the end of the day, he knows wrong is wrong. Is like, I'm not gonna let you just hurt her though. Like, I'm not like, she wants to help. That's another thing that kind of threw me off, because it's like he wants Kamala to help, but he also was like, she said she needs time, which is like understandable. So yeah, but anyways, I was just
He
really
was
happy.
just as shocked as we were when his mom was like doing the 180 twist.
Because I honestly, when she texted him, I thought she was gonna straight up be like, no. And then I would have been, not like it would have made it okay, but then I would have been like, oh my God, they would have, they're gonna go straight up. We're taking over everything. But she didn't even do that. But yeah, that was one direction that I'm really happy they chose to not go in with him. Of course, we don't know what's gonna happen with the next couple of episodes, but at least for like, right now, he did do his best to like help her and try to stop them.
Yeah.
And then just to like real quick to go back to like the mosque scene and the way that they were defending themselves against the damage control agents. One of the biggest awesome things about this comic series is the importance and like the importance of the way they address racism and Islamophobia, and the way that these characters deal with very obvious racist Islamophobic comments and situations where like, you don't deserve to be walking around in this neighborhood, like we're gonna arrest you, like, so like this was the show's way of being like, oh hey, like we should address the stuff that the comics do, but it's also a little, I don't know, wobbly. It seems forced in a way, like the way that they have like this really obviously racist white agent going like, is she South Asian? Is she Muslim? Does she have an accent? Right? It's really interesting because it is that theme of racism and Islamophobia is something that the show needs to address if they really want to reflect on the main themes of the comics. And it just seems like they're going out of their ways to do it properly, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it felt kind of clunky. Like, especially that, I know this isn't the right episode, but that last episode where they had the scene where they were questioning Zoe, it just like, it felt so off as compared to the rest of the episode. Like, and then like now with, now just the white agent being there, I don't know where the other one went. And like, her walking in, I did appreciate though. I liked the touch of like the shot centering on the shoes walking into the mosque. I thought that really helped to show us like what was sticking out. But yeah, it feels like they're, instead of like, not that any racism is good, but like instead of showing like the more subtler ways, the microaggressions and everything that Kamala faced in the comics, they're kind of just going fully like profiling and whatever, which is also important to address, but it doesn't seem like they're quite figuring out how to do it.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, Ashley, you talked about that specifically with Falcon and Winter Soldier too,
I was
right?
literally gonna like, I was sitting here like, oh my God, this, like, they're gonna hate me if I bring this thing up again. But it really just shows like, I think people really don't understand that for many people of color, the racism that we deal with on a daily basis is not like in your face, get pulled over, have, gun pointed at you. Though yes, those are incidents that do happen to us. Like for those of like, for many of us, it's us making the same amount of money as a white person who just got approved for a loan while we get denied the way, Sam Wilson did in Falcon and the Winter Soldier. For many of us, it's, being, called, the janitor when we are the professor, which is something that happens to me as someone who works at a university. Like that's, those are the things that and it's like, those aren't things that are going to make the news, but like, it's stuff that we have to navigate. And, like there are ways in which you can illustrate our struggles instead of like these really, I don't want to use the word like triggering because that's very annoying, but like, just like, it's very clear, like they're trying to do this like in your face, moment. And it's like, you can make it very clear without this, like, let's have her be as racist as possible in the scene so that people know that racism exists. So that's, I'm hoping that as the MCU continues to become more diverse and we are going to have to, address these moments both in these future episodes and for Miss Marvel, as well as, future characters, that they do a better job with this. But it was, that I mean, I already told you I'm ready to see the people in damage control catch a bad one for my own sake. But like that scene was just very much it was very unnecessary, and really
it was very unnecessary. Yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, no, please. Like, this is, it's
go ahead.
So they're not doing a good job, but then it's also like, unfortunately, because my race got depicted first, and they disappointed us. So I wish I could have prepared you. I could have prepared everyone better. Like, let you guys know, like, no, don't have your expectations too high, guys. just go back.
For me, it's like the world knows about how racist governments can be and how racist these massive groups of people can be. Like the FBI is surveilling mosques and things. Like we already kind of know about like the ongoing struggle that people as a whole face, like as people of color. But what isn't shown on television are the microaggressions. Like for some reason, like exactly what Maryam was saying is that like on TV, anytime there's like someone wants to deal with racism, it's always like the most overt, obvious, biggest, most hurtful thing that they can do to be like, this is how we want to like show what this is like. But it's not like that. It's literally like people calling you names in the schoolyard, or making weird looks at you, or just dealing with like these microaggressions that people don't see on a daily basis because they're not people of color. Yeah. And so like if you really want to showcase like how to deal with racism and how to confront racism and like showcase the things that our communities go through, you got to do it through the lens of like the individual facing that microaggression, not the lens of like this massive government's program going in to raid a mosque.
Yeah.
So my weird, like, and this isn't a defense, this is what I think what they do with that, because it feels like that's the only kind of like aggression that they're comfortable portraying, whether it's racist, sexist, or whatever. It's like they're only comfortable doing it in like, oh, it's like, this organization. That way I almost feel like it's them trying to like play their racism safely. That way, like, they're not pissing off some like dumb shit conservative racist person. Like that person can be like, oh, it's that group. That's like, that group is just doing it. And I really think that's what they try to do with this shit. And it doesn't work because, like y'all said, it's like because isn't it the opening of maybe the first trade that Zoe's talking to Nakia and she's like, oh, why are you wear that hijab? Do they make you wear it? Like she's like saying like shit like that.
Or and like the teacher mispronouncing Kamala's name.
Right. Yeah.
Like, because that happens to women of color, people of color really, all the time. So like even that, is something that, and her eventually addressing it as she becomes more confident, like that is a way to both make people aware of something that happens, and like, as well as addressing it. So, you can do it. Like, I know maybe somebody sat back and was like, that's not powerful enough. But actually, like, like that is a way in which, and when you tackle those microaggressions throughout a series, I do think you're making a bigger statement than like this really triggering scene of having people go into a mosque. And I mean, I would honestly, and you can let me know if you disagree with this, I would say maybe on some level they're tackling like sexism a little better than the actual like than racism, in that they have Nakia taking on more of a leadership role. She's the one who knows that they don't have any legal standing to just randomly search their place of worship and things like that. So like seeing that was like great, because like that is something that officials do try to do in hopes that we just like will stay out of their way and not say anything and just try and mm-hmm. get through it. So I feel like that was a really powerful, short yet impactful scene that did way more than just like them, like that, like her, the way in which she addressed them. I'm happy that they picked the right character in terms of like, we don't want it to be just this person of authority who calls them out, but I think there was a better way to have her, like giving her the leadership position that she was going after, and then having her take it seriously to a point where we see that come out of her without this effect of like non people of color targeting people of color. There was definitely a way to do it, but I don't know. I'm gonna just assume that they didn't see us like calling them out for what they did in Falcon and Winter Soldier when they were working on the show, and that they'll never do it again. I know that's me lying to myself, but that is what I'm gonna tell myself for the remainder of the show.
So then we get we get a little bit more of like Bruno doing sciencey stuff. There asks him about, he knows about interdimensional travel. He says it'll just take time, blah blah blah. But then he does tell her about Caltech. And that was the moment when I was like, because he was like, "You've seemed a little busy," and I was like, I don't know here, sir. Like you're pushing it. Cause like she has been busy. So like, I don't know. Like aside from this new hot charming guy like sweeping her off her feet, it's like also she found out she has superpowers. Also her brother is getting married. Her entire family is in town. Like she is busy, sir.
Also, at this point, she had literally just found out her actual background. Right. Like not just that she has this bracelet, but that this is the reason why she can actually use it.
Yeah.
So like, I mean, again, I know I've already kind of made clear, like I'm not a big fan of the Jen storyline, but that is a really big thing for someone to find out all of like 5 minutes ago. And then you're all like,
right.
She literally calls herself the stuff of nightmares. I mean, like,
like she's like really like, she's processing here a bit, and you're like upset that she's not. I mean, I understand where he's coming from as well. He hasn't been prioritized maybe as a friend. From his point of view, I don't know if I completely agree with it, but it's also just like, this was like a summer program and things like that. I mean, I feel like, I don't know, just him, the way in which he even threw it out, it kind of felt more like I got stuff going on too, and less of like hey.
It felt a little weird.
Yeah, like it wasn't like it wasn't like a look, I know this ain't a great time, but I leave in 2 days type of thing. It was like I want her to know I'm special. And so that was kind of but then again, we do have to take into account like they're young and they're kids. Right, so like they're also not gonna have the same, mentality. And then to be fair, we have been watching adults in the MCU not make the best decisions for the past 10 years. So I will give
also
them
that. That's also a good point.
Let me not be too hard on them. Like Steve didn't just decide, oh, my best friend killed his parents. Let me not. Oh, that's crazy. Let me not judge him too.
And I do like, she does say like when he's like, oh, you just have to wait, and she's like, Carol Danvers wouldn't wait. And I was like, no, I love how much she loves Carol Danvers. Like, I love what a little nerd she is. It makes me, I'm like so protective. I'm like, protect this cute nerd child. I want her to thrive.
I agree. I like that little mention of her too, because I feel like other than from episode 1 and her like cosplay, like there really hasn't, like they haven't focused in on her love for Captain Marvel. I mean, like obviously we know that's eventually where she's going to get her name. So I'm just really excited for Captain Marvel to like inspire her even more.
Yeah.
To get to that point.
Mm.
Yeah, but she still says also in that scene, which I think also ties in a bit to the comics, where she's like, she can't quite imagine herself as the hero. And like, she says, obviously I can't be the superhero. And I'm like, no, you can.
I know. So then we get a scene that I thought was really nice with her mom, where she's because so when she's sitting with Bruno, she's rubbing her knee, and I was worried. I was like, oh god, is this gonna be like they did something to her and that's why she's rubbing her knee? But like she did fucking fall pretty hard, so like she hurt her knee. And she's like looking at her like the like cuts on her knee, and her mom walks in. What'd you think of it?
I think that was personally my favorite scene of the episode. Like, I literally almost cried. It felt so genuine to the stories of my parents, the people I know in general who come here and like, away from their families, away from their homes. She says like, I've never felt so alone in my whole life, her mom.
Yeah.
And like, I remember talking to my own mom and her being like, yeah, well, your dad was at work and I was pregnant with you and I was just alone in the house. And I was like, wow. But yeah, that one definitely hit pretty hard. But I loved what I really loved about this episode in general was like how well they showed sort of Kamala's relationship with her family, the love and the joy they have of being with each other. So yeah, I really like this scene.
Yeah, I agree. It was really, really nice to see her connect to her parents. I like that both her and her brother got talks from her parents, and like she was able to like overhear the pep talk that her dad gave her brother.
Yeah.
Because in the comics, like she really has this connection with her family, and like her mom knows like pretty early on about what she's doing as Miss Marvel. And like one of the things that really angered me in the first episode was the way that her mom was like, no, I don't trust you. Like, I don't trust you at all. Like that like really bugged me, because that's not really how her family's like in the comics. And like they of course didn't want her to go to parties, but like it wasn't that bad. And so like to see her connect with her mom, I think was really, really beautiful.
Okay, I'm glad it's not just me being grumpy, because I felt like the mom was a little bit too hard and like harsh with her at first, and then like we've been getting more and more like warm moments between her and her mom, which I have liked, and I thought I did tear up. I was like, this is so nice. Like I like seeing the mom be so sweet with her and like tender, because we know the mom loves her and the mom isn't trying to be hard on her, but like you said, Tariq, I didn't love her being like, no, I don't trust you. Like I'm like,
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and like, but this I thought was really well done, and both of them have very good mother-daughter chemistry, I think.
I agree.
And like, she was just taking care of her, and she wasn't. This is where I was like, because I always like, I'm like, her telling that story reminded me of my grandma talking about coming here from Puerto Rico, and how like anytime a friend would come to Jersey from Puerto Rico, she would let them stay with them, and like until they got a job or whatever. Like her and my grandpa were like the go-between for the family. And I was thinking of, she said that like when she first came, her and her sister lived together with their families because they felt alone. And I was thinking about that, and like, but this is where I go to like, my mom would have been like, why are you crying? Tell me right now and tell me every detail that's going on. Like, Puerto Rican mother is way too fucking nosy. Like she would have been like, you have to tell me what's going on or I'm not leaving the bathroom and you're not leaving the bathroom either.
It's really actually interesting that you mentioned that, because she was so heavily involved in like, where are you going? Why do you want to go to this party? Like, what are you going to be doing? I'm not going to allow you to do this. And then in this episode, she like doesn't really tell her what's going on or what's really upsetting her, but like is able to like connect with her. And then when she gets home at the end of the night after disappearing, like she doesn't get in any trouble for being gone or for potentially pulling the fire alarm. Like that was like, it was really interesting. Like her relationship with their mother and the way that they keep portraying it.
Yes, I did feel that way about that end. I was like, wait a minute, that's it? She just says I can't tell you, and they accept that? Like that felt a little off. But this moment I thought was sweet, and I'm glad that.
Sorry to fast forward.
Oh no, not at all. And I'm glad that she got to witness her father's speech to her brother, because I thought that him talking to Amir about like, he's like, I only have $700, and I thought that was also very sweet. And I don't think she needed that from her dad, right? Because her dad is pretty warm with her in general. So like, it's not like she needed it. Like her mom and her needed that moment more than her and her dad did. And I think it did work, just to like, she overhears her father giving the speech, right?
Yeah.
So then we do cut. Well, then we get the quick cut of Cameron, his mom being like, I'm going to make her. And then we just keep moving, which is, even I was like, that was quick. That was weird. But then we cut to the wedding. And I loved the wedding. The wedding like just made me happy.
Yes.
I do wish she didn't have to pull the fucking fire alarm, though. I was like, man.
Sorry, my Siri went off for some reason. She was like, yep.
Siri agrees. But right, I wanted them to like literally just have a nice family wedding, and maybe the superhero stuff happens afterwards.
Especially
go ahead. Yeah.
I was just going to talk about the dance sequence. That was like, that's going to when like at the end of all 6 episodes. I mean, I know we technically have so much more to see, but like I'm going to be holding that close to me, like every part of it. I think, like, what was it? One of the kids was even wearing the Hulk suit.
Yes.
Wait, really?
Yeah, I noticed that. Yeah.
Aisha's brother.
Okay. So yeah, like that was amazing. That was beautiful. That was my favorite thing. I just wanted people to know that.
Yeah, I really liked the wedding scene too. I especially liked, for some context, so the part where they both accept each other as husband and wife is called a nikah. And it's like, so they both have to say it thrice. Like both Taisha and Amir have to say thrice that they accept the other as their spouse. And like the moment where sort of the sheikh calls for takbir, which is like the prompt to say Allahu Akbar, which means God is great. And like the moment where he says that and they all like joyously say Allahu Akbar thrice as well. Like in the history of how Muslims have been portrayed on screen and how that phrase Allahu Akbar has been sort of like present, often not in the best contexts, it really meant a lot to see it this way, I think, in like such a joyous moment after their wedding.
I agree. It was really beautiful, especially with that shot of Iman Vellani saying Allahu Akbar. Allah Akbar. I don't say that enough, so I don't have enough practice because I'm not a very religious person, but I am Muslim, and I hear Allah Akbar, and it fills me with joy and happiness because it's like so much part of my culture. And so I think a lot of people kind of hear that term and are very scared of it because of the way that it's been portrayed in media and the way that like terrorists say that shit right before they do something stupid, right? And so I think to have that intimate moment and that expression of that phrase with so much joy, I think was really, really beautiful. I agree.
Yeah, and like, yeah, I just these are the moments that I've really loved in the series, is watching her just like experience joy. Like not only is this like a character that deserves it, but it's like so fun to watch, and I just enjoy like. Also, hands up. I mean, I'm very fucking gay, and you know, I love a dance scene. And I was like, this is so nice. They're all having fun, and like, it was nice to just, you know, again, like we did get this very sweet, warm moment between her and her mom, but her mom has been a little bit more like stiffer, and it was nice to also see. Like, I loved seeing the parents dancing together. I love seeing that. I love that when they lifted Kamala up, that she wasn't the like best dancer, right? And she was like a little like unbalanced too, and like the brother was worried they might drop her. I like that it wasn't all like a super perfect like TV show choreographed dance. It felt like, oh, this is like a family dancing together and like having fun. And I loved when Brown Jovi was on stage. I love that.
Yeah.
Brown Jovi was great. That was right? So awesome. It's like it seems like this, like the wedding scene and like the Mahdi where they were pretty like prettifying their arms in celebration, like before the wedding. Like it's this type of stuff that this show really excels at in terms of like showcasing pride and joy in your culture and in your faith. Like it's like almost where all of this energy kind of went to, like all the energy that could like that maybe wasn't spent on like clarifying the 180-degree term that Najma has or something like that. All of the energy was put into this, and I'm not mad about it because I actually like that how much emphasis they're doing.
No, that specificity matters a lot. Like it shows how much care they put into it. I've had a very interesting experience watching this show. So I got screeners, so I had to like stay quiet for a while. But I've been watching it with my family, my parents and my 2 little sisters. And like my parents notice things sometimes. They're like, "Oh my God, look, they made that reference." I was like, "I know." And like my sisters are just starry-eyed at seeing Kamala and, you know,
Are they
her
younger?
being South Asian Muslim and everything. We're Indian Muslim, she's Pakistani, but like there's a lot of shared things anyways. But yeah, just like the mehendi. Also, one thing that I don't know if you all noticed, but in the mehendi scene, usually in one of the ceremonies in South Asian weddings, there are multiple. There is usually this tradition called like juta chorai, which literally means like stealing the shoes.
Okay.
And so that moment where Amr comes down from the stairs and is like, "You're only supposed to steal one pair of shoes," you see Gabe, Taisha's brother. Usually it's the bride side doing it. Like Taisha's brother just picking up a whole bunch of shoes and hiding them somewhere. And I really liked that they like slyly put that there. But yeah, I really appreciate how specific these things are, because like anything very generic, people aren't really going to see themselves in.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that, like throughout the soundtrack, throughout like what they're showing the wedding scenes and all that, that there's so much care given to portraying those specific things.
Yeah, and also as just as someone, learning about a culture on the outside looking in from the show, like I get to learn that that's something that happens, because I otherwise I wouldn't have known. That's another thing, like going to like your point of like, you don't want to do something super generic because then the community that's supposed to be being reflected doesn't really see themselves. But then it's also like it's really easy for those who are watching and supposed to be, on some level like learning even, to not really understand like the cultural differences and see them like on screen. So I was like really appreciative to see that as well. And it was a really funny moment.
And the thing that I really love that they do, which I don't know that everyone would feel this way, but so and I'm not gonna say what it was, but I remember I read something about a Puerto Rican family, right? And I was like very excited, and it was like a supernatural novel, and they kept pausing to explain everything when they would have a reference, and I was like, this is like taking me out every time, like if you're explaining it. And I'm really glad that this show doesn't pause to be like you just said, like, okay, that's a tradition, but like we can get, you know what I mean? Like I feel like as a viewer who like I'm not as knowledgeable about the culture, it's like, oh, I get that that's a tradition, and they're not going to like pause to like spoon feed it to you. They're gonna be like, it's just Amir being like, you took all the shoes, and like it's a joke, and like I appreciate any stories from like, if it's a culture I don't know, like I don't want them to feel like they need to pause to explain to like the viewers that are outside of like the culture. And I like that they don't do that here. I like that it is what it is. And like you were saying that some of your parents, you're watching with your parents and like, oh look, they referenced that. Like, I don't know, like I'm curious what you both think about that. Like, do you not like if they pause? Because I don't like I said, I read a story about like a Puerto Rican family, and I hated that they would pause every time that like if there was something written in Spanish, it would then explain it. And I'm like, I don't know.
No, I really like the way that they just kind of show it as it is, and then don't really explain it, because like it just introduces you into the world without othering it or without making it feel like different. Like this is just how it is. Like you don't have to go ahead and explain exactly what every single tradition or aspect is, or like you don't have to really understand why they say I do 3 times each. Right. You see it and you're like, okay, I can understand that this is a tradition, this is a cultural thing, and it just educates you in a way without having to like force it down your throat.
Yeah, exactly. My dad kept on using the word normalize.
Nice.
So I think in showing these things that are just happening as they are, it is like if you pause to explain it, that implies that, like Tariq was saying, that there is an othering happening, that this is something that isn't quote unquote normal.
Right.
So yeah, I do appreciate that there isn't like constant pausing, and there's like references to culture woven throughout the thing.
Okay, I'm glad that's not just me being grumpy. Okay. So Cameron's family, well, the clandestines, I don't know that they're all his family, but his mother and the clandestines enter. I hated that Kamala had to pull the fire alarm. So I was like, I knew that someone was going to be like, oh, she pulled it, and then she was going to get in some shit. And I was like, I want her just to like not get in trouble for trying to help people. Like, and you know, that's right. That's a zillion superhero stories. That's like a, you know, I kept thinking of, because I relate everything back because the podcast started as a Buffy podcast. I kept thinking of Buffy, like, you know, she's a teen girl who like can't tell her mom that she has these powers, and like she only has her, at the start of the show, her like 3 friends that know she has these powers and fights monsters. And I'm always, I mean, of course we're rooting for the hero because we're not assholes, but I kept thinking of that with like how Buffy would always get in trouble by her mom. And it's like, if her mom just could understand what was going on, and like, you know, at the end, I mean, now I'm jumping ahead. I'm like, just tell them, please just tell them. I don't want them being mad at you and thinking you ruined a wedding on purpose. Like, but I did love that Bon Jovi played. I love that they played Bon Jovi. Like that feels also very New Jersey, right?
Yes.
And Ashley, I mean, you did tweet about this. She doesn't do a lot of fighting, right?
Yeah, and it is understandable because she literally got her powers last week and she's a kid. And I think we've been spoiled because even though we've been introduced to some younger superheroes as of late, they've been coming trained, right? Like
Right, yeah.
Kate Bishop saw Hawkeye during the Battle of New York and was like, "Give me a bow," and you know, we didn't get to see Isaiah Bradley's son fight, but he didn't seem too scared of Bucky or Sam Wilson. Something gives me the feeling that when that's your grandfather, you know how to defend yourself. Right. And so like all these like younger sort of superheroes we're coming across are all giving me like, I don't know if I'm a win, but you're gonna know you was in a fight vibes. And like, you know, she was very like, she was running, quite frankly. That's really what it, you know, and it was a little, and I guess I wouldn't mind it so much. I guess maybe if like it was earlier in the show and it was like, all right, people are coming after you because you have this, you know, you have this bracelet and you don't really know what it is yet. And now people who know you have it, so they're coming after you. So then it would be like more understanding. But it's like we're halfway at the show at the mark, and it's sort of just like, okay, I'm not, I don't know, man. Like, I think
I feel you. No, I understand. I understand
think, because so far the voice of the show has been teenage girl gets superpowers. And so I think I was enjoying, honestly, more so there not being a big bad guy, if that makes sense. Like we had people who were antagonists and like, you know, damage control and like these annoying people, but we know like they're not really hurdles, not quite yet. So it's like, it's, you know, having now these big bad guys who are basically trained assassins and millions of years, not millions, but like extremely old. They know it's like, how are you now going to reasonably make her able to go up against them in 3 episodes if this is the case? So I guess maybe that's really more so you know, at least with Kate Bishop, if she had not been experienced, we still have Clint Barton. It's like, you know, it's like, you got somebody there who knows what they're doing. It's like, damn.
Well, also, like Kate Bishop has her powers. Like she has her skills. Like she like is very skilled by the time we see her.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And like, what do you?
So, that was just.
I'm curious. Like, do we think it would have benefited? Like, because we did briefly in episode 2, and I liked it. The like little montage of her like figuring out what she can do. And, you know, there's like that, like, which you said, Ashley, and I think you were right, Ashley, that it was a Black Widow reference, but she's like, you have to let me go. And then it's like, she's right there at the ground. It's not even a far drop. Like, I would have been okay if that was like our montage. And it's like, now she knows how to use them and we're good. Like, I kind of would have been okay because it is a truncated 6-episode series. Like, I would have been okay being like, yeah, she learned most things during that montage. Just like, we don't know how long it was. I would have been okay if like, okay, she's not 100%, kind of like Kate Bishop. Kate Bishop wasn't 100%. She still sometimes missed the shot, but like was still pretty good. I feel like we need to like get Kamala to that point quicker, right?
That's exactly why. Oh, I'm sorry.
No. I was literally just agreeing. That's all.
Yeah,
that's exactly why I mentioned earlier, like the very start, how like this entire verse 3 is still kind of like in the slump phase for me, just because like the character growth hasn't really been there so far. And so like that's why the first 3 episodes for this series for me are so low, because it's just, it hasn't really elevated Kamala as a hero yet, and like we're still waiting for her to kind of get to that point. And then they like slap her into that fight, which actually you mentioned. It's just like, all right, like she's just kind of like defending herself and like not really knowing how to do it. But like, why are you going to put her up against these 100-year-old clandestines if there's not going to be like any sort of like prowess there to show her ability as a hero growing? Like, I think if she was able to actually maybe kick some ass in that fight, my opinion about the slump might be different. But so far, these first 3 episodes are just very like, very low level, I think.
Yeah, I think we're at the halfway point.
Yeah.
Like, we only have 3 more episodes to go. So I do think the sort of 6-episode structure is really hindering the show as a whole from being what it can. Because if this were like 3 of 9,
right,
like you'd understand, like, all right, she's in over her head at this point, but there's more room to develop. And sure, there might be more like further on. We know we're going to see Kamala in the Marvels at some point, but like, if this is the origin story that she is getting, and we're at the halfway point, and she's like still fumbling with her powers, which is also understandable. Like, even in the comics, she experiments with her powers, like, and she grows along with them for a while, but like, it felt like she was thrust into something very quickly, which might just be like where they're trying to go, like trying to show that she's in her, over her head, and she maybe somehow suddenly gets into it. But like, I don't know about the 6 episodes for this one.
Watch them spend like half of the next episode with her not even getting to Karachi yet, and then the last half is when she finally starts to be like, ooh.
Well, right, and Ashley, that's what we said about Moon Knight, right? How like the pacing was pretty slow, and then suddenly everything happened in the finale, and it was like, wait a minute, what? Why did we rush? It felt rushed for a show that like took its time otherwise, and I'm worried that we're getting that here. Hands up, though. Tariq, are you not a big YA person? Because I am.
I'm an okay YA. I used to read a lot of YA back in the day.
Are you gonna make me feel old? You mean when you were younger? Because I still read it.
No, I need to read more often. So it's not that I don't like YA now. It's just I spend too much time watching TV.
That's totally fair. Because the only reason I asked that is because I think that's why for me the first 2 episodes did work, because it was like, oh, she's just like being a like very charming teenager, and she's like really fucking nerdy. So like I'm immediately like, I love this child and I want her to thrive. Like, so that part I like.
I mean,
enjoyed.
Fair. Yeah, it was a really great introduction to Ahmad Vellani as Kamala Khan, because it really like showcased her skill set into like being able to portray this young character, this young nerdy character that's obsessed with Avengers and superheroes.
Yeah, and like. Yeah, so I mean, if like this was just like a teen comedy drama, I would probably be into it. Like, take out the superhero stuff, and it's just like this cute teenager like navigating life. I'd be like, I love this. So the God, what's Cameron's mother's name again? I forgot.
Najma.
Najma, yeah.
So does she grab the bangle or Kamala's hand?
The bangle, I think.
Is it the bangle?
Yeah.
And then they both have a vision of the train, which is very easy to assume it's the train we had heard of, right? From the partition story. And like, I was almost like, ooh, Kamala, jump out, let it like hit the bad guys. But I realized it was just like a vision, not like an actual train. But that was like, immediately I was like, okay, that does like pique my interest again. Cause it's like, okay, we are bringing it back to the story we heard in the previous episode. And then Damage Control comes in and kind of like accidentally saves them. I didn't quite, because it was like the heavy-handed racism of like this government group. I was like, oh, do they think one of these women is it Nightlight? Is that the fake name they're giving her? Nightlight? Yeah. I was like, are we supposed to assume that that's like, they think it's one of them? And then I was like, no, they know that Nightlight is a child.
Yeah, I think it's more so they know that that they'll know who she
Yeah.
is. Because I mean, what, like that kitchen scene, you know, they've seen her powers at this point.
That's true.
So I don't know if people maybe think, like, they know Nightlight is somewhere up in the building. So I think that they, at most, they just know that these people know who Nightlight is, and let's make a deal and you tell us who it is. And I don't think they will, just because that jeopardizes them being able to go home, or, you know, where they're supposed to be. So yeah, but I think that's really more so like, same thing of them taking the social influencer girl.
Zoe.
Zoe.
Man, Ashley, we've been doing this for 3 episodes and we can't keep anyone's
It's so many names. I'm kidding. But no, yeah. But yeah, I think at this point they're just kind of like grasping at straws until they can get to her.
It's really funny that she was able to escape with a very injured Bruno.
Yeah.
Like they didn't have the back entrances covered at all.
Yes, and mind you, really, they were right there. It wasn't like there was really like it was an open room. It wasn't like it was a bunch of stuff to hide behind.
Yeah.
I definitely
just
thought
like
they got
slightly
caught.
hidden behind a pillar.
Yeah, I was like, okay, sure, we'll go along with this.
That's funny. I was thinking that too. I was like, well, they definitely saw them, right? But I guess they didn't. Because she uses her powers to like keep the door shut in case. Because even Kamala's like, oh, they probably saw us, but I guess they didn't. Well, so then they get outside and Tariq, who finds them?
Nakia.
Yeah.
Okay. So I love that they actually let Nakia in on the secret so early.
Yes.
Yeah.
I really, really, really love that, because it really will help Kamala feel more attuned to her like friends and family as Miss Marvel, and like to know that like she has the support of not only Bruno the tech guy, but Nakia, her best friend. Like I think that's great.
Yeah.
Also, I think Nakia's like sort of whole, when she like storms into Kamala's room in the episode. Well, this is earlier, but and she's
I
like,
glazed over that. I'm sorry. Yeah. Talk about that.
no, you're good. But like, yeah, she storms into Kamala's room and talks about like her being elected to the board. But before that, she's like, oh my god, this like Nightlight girl like doesn't even care what's happening, like that damage control is at the mosque and all that. So I think this will be a really interesting way to maybe get Kamala to root herself in her community a bit more, along with, hopefully there isn't too big of a clash between them. I'm really hoping there isn't. But that sort of like Nakia being aware of whatever Kamala is now will be very interesting to see.
It's funny that you just mentioned that, because I was going to say that I appreciated that Nakia was like pissed, but not too pissed, right? She was just kind of like, wait, why didn't you tell me? And like, that's completely valid, right? To be like, I'm your best friend and you told Bruno, but you didn't tell me. And like, I was just talking to you about this. Like, I appreciated that. Because, you know, sometimes in a lot of these like superhero stories, it's like they can have the like non-superpowered person like do a little too much with like not knowing and like making it their problem, even though it's not their problem. And so I appreciated that she was like pissed, but then was like, okay, yeah, I'm going to help Bruno. All right. Like, whatever. We'll talk about this later. I really like appreciated that she was still a good best friend, even though she had like reason to be a little pissed at her. Right.
Yeah, I think she really does need more like people in her circle to like know about her like superheroes other than Bruno, so she has that sense of like grounding and community.
Yeah.
Also, I am like 99% sure that Sheikh Abdullah knows that Nightlight is Kamala.
Oh yeah. He had a very knowing like look towards her when she was asking like him for advice.
I am so glad you both brought that up, because I forgot I put that in my notes and I was like, wait, does he know? Because it did feel like he was like, I know who you are. I saw you. Like,
I know, right? Like, I mean, like that costume doesn't really do a great job of like hiding like the way that your body looks or your hair. Like, I guess it hides her hair, but like you can pretty obviously tell that that's like if this is a girl that's been going to your mosque for years since she,
like he might as well have winked at the end of his speech to her. But I would really like that if it like does turn out that he's just like very chill about it and is like, I'm gonna let her do her thing, and like when she wants to come to me about it, we can talk. Like, I would like that if that's like a reveal. Like, maybe she goes to tell him about it and he's like, yeah, I know, you know. But so speaking of needing more people in her circle, she gets home and I wanted her to tell her parents so badly. I really
Oh my
did.
God, yes.
Okay, yeah, talk about that, because
Yes.
I was like, please tell them.
Yeah, I think you really see at that moment, and Iman Vellani is doing such a great job, like, of her realizing that this is a really risky thing that she's doing, but
Yeah.
like just the urge to like actually talk to her parents about this, but then also knowing like, oh, I need to protect them from this. It just, oh my God, it broke my heart. I was like, please just tell them, they'll understand. But
Right.
I know, I understand she shouldn't.
Yeah, it's like, I do get it, because she doesn't want to also put her family in any possible, like, it's not like there is an immediate danger to telling them, but there could be a danger, right? And like, you know, these people, the clandestines, already attacked like her brother's wedding, so it's like, I get it, but I don't know, I feel so bad for her, and I'm like, I just want her to like, I feel like her father's so like sweet and like the goofy one, that he would be like, oh my God, and like, I feel like he would be support. They would be like, you know, parents about it, supportive, but like scared. And I don't know. Kamala deserves like a nice day where there's like no, like, where she's not getting in trouble. And yeah, I don't know. And also, I was like, all right, if she's not going to tell them, can't she just lie and say, no, I didn't pull the fire alarm?
Yes, really.
Because it's like, it's hard to explain if you're going to be like, I did pull the fire alarm, but I can't tell you why. Like,
I mean, like, especially because you had that, like, that aunt friend who was like, "Are you kidding? You can't even like
Right.
see right like correctly." Like, there's a very good way out of that situation.
Yeah. Yeah, if Kamala was like, oh, who said that? Did she say that? Because, you know, Mom, she can't really see that well. Like, I would have done that. God. And then she goes upstairs and FaceTimes with her grandma, which I always, I love the like bit of her grandma putting up the ear, because my grandmother, who was 99, does the exact same thing.
Yeah.
If you try to FaceTime her.
Yeah.
And so the grandmother reveals that she just very casually is like, oh, you saw the train. Oh, I know, because I saw it too. Which then, you know, brings up, I mean, one assumes that her grandmother is also connected to, because they say, right, that the bangle brought out her power, right? It's not like the source of her power. So that kind of like opens more questions, but also lets us know that her grandmother is at least in on what's going on, right? Like, her grandma is aware of the power sets like within their family. And again, I think that that'll be nice, that she'll have this ally in her family who also already knows, right? I think she needs that kind of person, right? Who can like kind of explain it, and like, I don't know, is like also a family member. I don't know. I like that. And I am like, that did make me look forward to the next episode, because I feel like her mom has to come in on it, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, like, if you think about it, so like, what was her? Okay, I mean, I know I'm probably asking the wrong group of people, but what was her grandma's name?
Her grandma's name is Sana. Her great grandmother is Aisha.
Aisha. Okay, right. Okay, so like, if you think about it, like, the bracelet was with Sana at some point, and she randomly decided to mail the bracelet along with some quote unquote junk to Kamala, right? And so, like, Sana must have had the bracelet as a toddler when she got onto the train, because she followed the star. So, like, if she saw stars, she was theoretically wearing the bracelet when she was getting on the train, and maybe that's what unlocked her Noor, and like now gave her the ability to have the same visions that Kamala is seeing. So I'm just like really interested to see where they take this, and how much her grandmother knows, because there's like this really weird hatred that her mom has towards her grandmother, and like her, and like, she brought shame on her family, but her grandmother went missing. I don't know how that really would have caused shame on the family. It's just really, really interesting. Really, really interesting stuff.
I think the constant references that like Muniba makes to like daydreaming and like, you know, getting lost in your head and all that relates to Sana, but also to Aisha to some extent, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So I am very intrigued to see like where they take this. That like even at one point, like in this episode at the Mehndi ceremony, I think the other like auntie is like saying like mothers and daughters, the eternal struggle, and like
Yeah.
there's that slight reference to whatever tension they have. But like, yeah, I'm really curious to see where that goes because I think it could be very poignant in how they explore the whatever line through her mothers and her mother's mother
Yeah.
she has and whatever connection she has to them. But yeah, I guess we'll see.
Yeah. I'm like pretty interested to see where they go because yeah, it does feel like, ooh, this could be really cool. This could be really interesting. And I will like to see. I love a like kind of like wacky grandma character. Because my grandma that passed away, not the one that's alive, but my grandma, my literally that language says that. God, can you tell I'm running on 4 hours of sleep? My grandma that passed away was a lot like that type grandma, and like I'm always like warmed by those type of grandma characters, and she seems like she like it's almost like her and Kamala have this relationship outside of the like the relationship with her parents, right? Like this grandmother doesn't one assumes that the grandma and the mom don't really speak, right? Like at all.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I'll be interested to like see that dynamic like unfold.
Yeah,
And
actually, what did you think about like the grandma vision bit?
We talked about in the first episode. I mean, first off, I can't remember who it was who talked about like the fact that the great grandmother she disappeared, and yet they were saying that it brought shame on the family, and I've been confused about that as well. Like,
Yeah, I brought that up.
what is what is the distinct event here? And like we knew like okay, you're alluding to it, so we're gonna get to that in a couple of episodes. And then it's like at the same time, this is kind of where I hope I'm not getting anyone expectations up or anything like that here because you know I could be wrong. This is where I'm hoping that the clandestines might have thrown Kamala off about her actual story, and that she's going to find out more about it from her grandmother, who also shared this vision with her. It's possible that it won't be the case. I don't know. It's just that we know that they're not that trustworthy, and all she's learned about herself has been from a group of people who want to take advantage of her. So even if what they're saying is true, it's possible that they're leaving something out. Even I think if nothing else, like the flashback scene, even that we got of what happened when they finally got the bangle, was from their point of view. So I'm just very interested about. Has anything been left out here? Has anything been added? Is it possible that none of this necessarily? Like, I'm very curious about just what happens when we really get a point of view from someone. I mean, I know we can't get it from the person directly, but maybe from someone who like it seems like from the way people are treating this story as some sort of shame, it seems like maybe word of mouth has made it so that they don't even know exactly what happened. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm loving the mystery of it a bit, but also I'm just like, is it possible that like we've been bamboozled a bit here and that this is gonna at the very least maybe open a door to something else? So that's kind of where I'm at with it, but also it's like it's linked to a lot of cultural like it's linked to a really cultural side of the story. So I'm just more so like trying to pay attention than say what anything is. I think this is gonna just be a real listening moment personally before I can say like what is and what isn't. That makes sense.
I think whatever it is or might become, especially since it is a train to Karachi and like the whole story about partition, I'm wary of how they're going to handle this, but I'm sure there's going to be some story about partition and the events that happened because so many people got lost, so many things, histories got, distorted and everything. It's a very traumatic like part of a lot of people's pasts. So I definitely think there will be some exploration of that, especially considering she's probably going to karate at some point.
Yeah, because it's
Mhm.
also just
yeah.
like the first vision that she got before the one with Cameron's mom was of another woman. And I assumed it to be, we don't know for sure, it hasn't been told in the show yet, but I assumed it to be her great grandmother.
Yeah.
Because we saw her after the story about her was told.
Yeah.
So, and then now finding out that her grandmother can share these visions. So two things, right? We know that there's supposed to be two Bengals.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Oh,
We
right.
have
I'd already
been
forgotten
told,
that. We learned that
Oh
at the
my
beginning
God,
of
I
the
forgot
episode. You're
too.
right.
so we've been told that they only found one. This is the reason why I'm like, okay, these aren't the most this is not the most trustworthy source. We now have clarified that, because I'm like, what if the second Bengal actually was found? Like, they wouldn't have told us that there's two out there without it meaning something. So I don't know if it means that we're going to see this Bengal now or maybe in something future down the line, but there's another Bengal out there. Is it possible that Kamala's grandmother has it and that's the reason why she shared the vision?
Well, that's so there's a point where she's on the call. I think it was in episode 2 where she's like grandma, like I need to know about this bangle. Her grandma says which one, and then I was just like,
Oh.
yeah. Her grandma literally says which one, and I'm like, and then she starts to talk about like the gift that she gives. She's like, oh, that one, like so, like I'm like, oh, okay, all right. What if?
Exactly. So that's my thing. There is that this seems to and then like even if she doesn't have it, one I think it obviously will have something to do with the story, but also is it possible that she's getting these visions because she doesn't need the bangle anymore? I think the last show we did, I can't remember who it was who alluded to like, is it possible that when this bangle opens up like this gene or this part of them, that at some point they don't need it anymore, or like if something happens to it, then we alluded to something along that line. So either it's possible that she has the other one, it's possible that she wore this bracelet at one point and now it's because of the effects she can still share visions with the person who is wearing it. So that's where my mind is at. But I have been kind of wrong about some of the stuff that I thought would come up, even though it's possible. I still think that Marvel's just throwing me off their trail. But yeah, I've been kind of quiet because I'm like, I don't want to give more theories, and then it's like they do something less. And I'm like, oh, sorry, guys.
Listen, the perils of co-hosting a Marvel podcast about a show as it's airing. No, you're kidding. When we did WandaVision, I feel like Preeti was the first person to bring up Mephisto, and then everyone after kept bringing it up, and I was fucking sold on that shit, and we were all wrong.
Oh my God, Mephisto.
And now I never want to hear that name again. Okay, so now that we're at the end, favorite scene, Ashley?
Oh, the wedding, everything. I can't even I mean, the entire sequence was extremely well done. It was beautiful. I've been saying that one of my favorite things about this show is that I am, as much as I'm learning, as much as I am enjoying the superhero adventure and all these familiarities from the comics, actually visually seeing sitting down and learning about a different culture through this show has been one of the best aspects of it. And that wedding sequence is as we said early in the show about not having to explain things, that this is just the way it is. This is how another culture does things. And it's like being able to just watch that and I see it treated as like an asterisk has been probably one of the best, like one of the big pros of watching the show, and seeing that scene was great.
Yeah. Tariq?
I agree. I think the wedding scenes in general, from seeing them say "I do" to the dancing, it really showcases the pride that the show has in like Pakistani culture and in like Muslim faith and Islam in general. I just think it really goes to show how much attention to detail they're putting into representing these groups correctly.
Yeah, that's fair. Maryam?
Yeah, not to be a copycat, but yes, the wedding as well. I think, especially the part where they're so joyously saying Allahu Akbar, I think really symbolizes a big change that the show is doing, for all its flaws possible, but that there's such a proud portrayal of Islam and the South Asian and Pakistani culture specifically. It really felt so familiar because like so many of these things, like the dances, the mehendi, the like Jugachurai and all those things. Like I've seen those things happen. I've been a part of it. So yeah, I definitely really, really love those.
Like also there are no plot holes with these parts of the show. Like you don't have to
Exactly.
worry, you don't have to question the 180 turn or Bruno's knowledge. You get to be like, oh, this is how it is. This is like what the real world is like. This is beautiful. Like it's just an appreciation without having to be like,
That's also true because to follow up, the wedding was my favorite scene, but I'm gonna talk more about my second favorite scene, which was the mom and Kamala and her mom in the bathroom. I thought it was,
oh yeah,
the acting in that scene was like very well done. I teared up. It was nice. I think we needed and earned that moment between her and her mom, where it's like, okay, because her mom, has been like, her dad has been the fun dad and like strict mom, right? And so I thought it was very nice to see the mom, like, because of course this mother loves her. Like she's not like mean. She's just strict, right? And like the dad's the fun dad. So like ones that's going to happen, right? So I thought like for the show and for these characters, we needed this like very sweet moment, and it was very well done. And wasn't like, I don't know. It was just like, the mom comes in and she's like, oh, what happened? And like, like washes her knee and very effortlessly without, she just says, I fell off my bike. And the mom accepts that. The mom isn't being like, oh, saying, I don't trust you or saying, anything like that. I thought it was just, and the lighting in this, like, this is like a stupid thing, but like the lighting in the scene was even really nice. Like it was like the light coming through the like white curtains. So it was like a little darker with some backlight. I liked the way it looked. Yeah, I was just a big fan of it. Loved the hug. What grade do we give this episode, Tariq?
I would go with a solid B minus.
Ooh, B minus. Medium?
B plus, but only because of the specificity of the weddings scenes.
Ashley?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with a B. Okay. But like, if they can't do what I need them to do in the next 3 episodes, and since I know I will be on the last episode of the podcast, I don't want people like adding up all my grades. And if I'm like being harsh, they're like, well, you said listen, we're at the halfway mark and I'm a little nervous, but I will give it a B because it's been doing well so far.
I feel like, Ashley, the reason you and I do co-hosting well together is because we both feel it's like, listen, I am also a fucking nerd, so nerds don't come for me.
They act like, and y'all act like I'm new here. I don't talk about anything else. Like, give me a break. So if I don't like it, and it's not, no, let me not, because it's like, I do like it, but it's like, if I am willing to criticize a wee bit, you should know it is not because I don't enjoy something.
Right.
This has literally been my life's work.
We both got comments on TikTok saying, like, have you guys ever watched a Marvel movie before? And we have never forgotten.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my goodness.
I'm like legit terrified now because I'm such a casual Marvel fan of people who are just going to go for my throat now that I've said all this stuff.
And also, if you are only listening to this and didn't listen to the first 2, you're not allowed to comment. You're not allowed to. It's been revoked.
Ashley is laying down the fucking hammer. I give it a B plus. I still even with the like plot holes that we discussed, I'm enjoying this more than I've enjoyed. I mean, hands up, I loved Hawkeye, so I did love, but like Kate Bishop and Kamala Khan are really working for me as characters, and it's like nice to see because, I mean, talk about fucking put on your clown shoes, Ashley. How many times was I like, well, in Multiverse of Madness, we're definitely getting Wiccan, and then he was still a child and then went away by the end. I was
the
like,
closest we got was a statue in Multiverse of Madness.
Right. Like, I was like, oh, we're definitely getting our first, like, like gay teen superhero. And we did not. But I have a little bit more faith in this show that even if like we don't quite land the plane at the end, like a lot of these shows don't. I've been enjoying Kamala so much, and she's so fresh and new that like I'm enjoying the ride. All right. Well, thank you all for listening. Thank you all for joining. If you like Slayerfest 98, you can find us